Later that day, as he left his office, he was still thinking about it when he noticed a young woman sitting on the sidewalk in front of a restaurant. She was dirty, her clothes worn out, but she had a beautiful face. Her messy hair fell over her shoulders, and her eyes weren't pleading, they were defiant. On impulse, he walked over to her, the outstretched hands in his pockets, looking down at her. "Hey, you need money." The woman looked up, but not with gratitude. Her gaze was sharp, as if she were deciding whether he was even worth a second of her attention. Then a smirk appeared on her lips. "What is this? A social experiment? You ask, and depending on my answer, you either toss me a coin or walk away." Alexander's eyebrows lifted. No one talked to him like that. "Come with me to an event, and I'll pay you enough to change your life." She let out a quiet chuckle, shaking her head slowly. "Enough to change my life. Wow. Do you always use dramatic lines? Or just when you want to sound like some kind of savior?" There was pure sarcasm in her voice, and it threw him off more than it should have. He kept his composure. "You just need to dress up, smile, and come with me." She tilted her head, amusement flickering in her eyes. "Oh, I see. You want me to be your decorative doll for the night?" Alexander narrowed his eyes. This woman was challenging him on purpose. "If you don't want the offer, I can find someone else." She laughed, this time out loud. "Is this a joke? Because honestly, I don't see a line of candidates waiting around here." He pressed his lips together. How the hell was she turning this around on him? She stood up, dusted off her dress, and stepped closer, too close. "I'll accept," she said, as if she were doing him a favor. "But only because I'm curious." Alexander felt something dangerous in the air. "Curious? Curious about what?" he asked, suspicious. She smiled, her eyes glowing with an unreadable expression. "To see how far a man like you is willing to go." Alexander stood still for a moment. Who the hell was this woman? Sophia settled into the seat of the luxury car, keeping her gaze fixed on the city passing by outside the window. She didn't seem scared, nervous, or impressed, just observant. Alexander, sitting beside her, realized he was waiting for some kind of reaction from her. No questions, no hesitation, just acceptance. "You don't even want to know where we're going?" he asked, breaking the silence. She turned to him, a smirk playing on her lips. "Someplace expensive, I imagine." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "And you're not curious?" "Should I be?" She tilted her head. "You found me on the street and offered me money to be your date. That's already strange enough, but I doubt you're planning to sell me into human trafficking or something." Alexander laughed. "No, nothing that dramatic. Just a social event. A wedding?" "Right." He looked at her. "How do you know?" "You have that look. A man trying to get revenge on someone." Alexander clenched his jaw. Sophia was reading him like an open book, and he didn't like it. "And if I am?" She shrugged. "Does it matter to me? As long as I get paid." Alexander smiled. He liked her attitude, but he still wanted to understand who this woman was, someone who accepted everything so easily. Minutes later, the car stopped in front of an elegant Bilinga, renowned beauty salon. Sophia stepped out without question and followed Alexander inside. The place smelled of expensive products, and a team of stylists rushed to assist them the moment he entered. "I want a complete transformation," Alexander ordered. "Hair, makeup, clothes, everything." The staff nodded, and within seconds, Sophia was seated in a styling chair. "If you want to change your mind, now's the time," she said as the hairdresser began untangling her hair. "Change my mind about what?" "About me. I guess I was expecting someone more impressionable." Alexander crossed his arms. "Are you not impressed by anything?" "Not by this." Sophia closed her eyes as the hairdresser started washing her hair. "I've been in this world before." Alexander frowned. But before he could ask anything, the stylist pulled him toward the waiting area. "Mr. Bennett, would you let us work?" He glanced at Sophia one last time and left, intrigued. The hours dragged on. When the stylist finally called his name, Alexander stood up and walked back to the salon. When he saw her, He held his breath. The woman standing before him didn't look like the same person he had met sitting on the curb. Her once messy hair now fell in smooth, shiny waves. Her face, previously dirty and marked with exhaustion, was now flawless. Her eyes, accentuated by sophisticated makeup. The fitted dress flattered her figure, and the high heels made her look even more confident. But what surprised him the most was her expression. She didn't seem shocked or impressed by her transformation. She simply looked at herself in the mirror, observing as if she had seen herself like this before. "What is it?" She turned to him, catching his curious gaze. "You don't look surprised," Sophia smiled, a mysterious glint in her eyes. "Because I'm not." Alexander crossed his arms. "Who are you, Sophia?" She grabbed the purse the stylist handed her and walked toward him. "Someone who knows how to seize good opportunities when they come." The car glided smoothly down the illuminated road toward the event Alexander had been avoiding but was now eager to attend. Beside him, Sophia observed the landscape with an almost irritating calm. He had expected her to show some anxiety or nervousness at some point, but since leaving the salon, her composure remained flawless, as if she were already familiar with that world. "You're very quiet," Alexander commented, glancing away from the road to look at her. "I'm just enjoying the silence," Sophia replied with a faint smile. He frowned. "Most people in your situation would be dazzled by all this." She laughed softly. "Maybe I'm not like most people." Alexander realized that pressing her further wouldn't get him anywhere. There was something about her that intrigued him, but he wouldn't get answers. So easily, the car finally stopped in front of a luxurious banquet hall where hundreds of elite guests had already gathered outside. Couples stepped out of limousines and sports cars, showing off their jewelry and designer dresses. Photographers and journalists covered the event, ensuring every detail of the wedding was documented for the society pages. Alexander got out first, adjusting his suit naturally. Then he extended his hand to Sophia, who accepted without hesitation. When she stepped out of the car, the immediate impact was undeniable. All eyes turned to her. Women whispered among themselves, trying to figure out who the mysterious woman accompanying Alexander Bennett was. Men watched her with interest. Sophia, however, didn't flinch. With impeccable poise, she lifted her chin and smiled discreetly, as if she were already used to being the center of attention. Alexander guided her down the red carpet toward the entrance of the hall. As they walked, Sophia maintained a serene expression, showing no surprise at the luxurious. "Follow my lead," Alexander whispered. "Be polite, smile, and don't draw unnecessary attention." She raised an eyebrow. "Did you bring me here to make your ex jealous, or to be invisible?" Alexander pressed his lips together, not answering. "That's what I thought," Sophia said with amusement. They passed through the double doors and entered the grand hall, where crystal chandeliers sparkled under golden light. The room was filled with high society figures dressed in their finest attire. It didn't take long for Victoria and her fiancé to come into Alexander's line of sight. Victoria looked stunning in an elegant white dress, her smile perfectly crafted to charm everyone. Charles Montgomery, her future husband, was exactly the type her family would approve of: wealthy, traditional, and predictable. Victoria's eyes met Alexander's for a brief second. She seemed surprised to see him there, but then her gaze landed on Sophia and froze. Victoria's expression changed subtly, as if trying to figure out who this dazzling woman next to her ex-fiancé was. With a calculated smile, Alexander led Sophia directly toward them. "Victoria," he greeted her with a polite yet cold tone. She blinked a few times before forcing a smile. "Alexander, what a surprise. I didn't expect you to come." "Of course I came." He looked at Sophia. "And I brought company." Victoria examined Sophia from head to toe. "We haven't been introduced." "You are." Before Alexander could respond, Sophia extended her hand naturally. "Sophia, a pleasure to meet you." Her voice was firm, elegant. Her posture was flawless, and her smile showed no sign of submission. Victoria hesitated before shaking her hand, clearly uncomfortable. "You look familiar," Olivia remarked. Sophia smiled, tilting her head slightly. "Do I?" Victoria forced another smile, but Alexander noticed the tension in her eyes. She was unsettled exactly as he wanted. Charles cleared his throat, trying to break the awkward atmosphere. "Shall we toast?" He raised his champagne glass. Alexander nodded, but before he could turn, Sophia gave a polite smile and said something that caught everyone off guard. I hope you'll be very happy. Marriage is a serious commitment. I was once engaged myself. Alexander. Victoria and Charles exchanged glances. Really? Victoria asked, forcing a casual tone. Sophia nodded, taking a sip of champagne. But it didn't work out. My fiancé decided I wasn't the right choice for his family. Alexander felt a chill run through him. She was sending a clear message, and Victoria caught it. His ex-fiancé's eyes narrowed slightly. That's an interesting coincidence, Sophia smiled. I think so too. An uncomfortable silence filled the air. Alexander could tell Victoria was struggling to keep her composure. Finally, Sophia lightly touched Alexander's arm. Would you like to dance? He blinked, surprised. Dance? Yes. Or would you rather stay here and watch your ex-fiancée try to figure out where she knows me from? Alexander chuckled softly. He liked the game Sophia was playing. Let's dance. They walked away, leaving Victoria behind, visibly disturbed. As they glided across the dance floor to the orchestra's melody, Alexander looked straight into Sophia's eyes. You did that on purpose. She smiled. Didn't I tell you? I've been in this world before. Alexander felt a mix of irritation and admiration. Sophia wasn't just a homeless woman he had found on the street. She knew exactly what she was doing. The music flowed smoothly through the ballroom as Alexander and Sophia moved across the dance floor. His gaze remained locked on hers, trying to figure her out. Sophia maintained flawless composure. Her lips curved into a mysterious smile, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. You keep surprising me, Alexander murmured, leading her with precision. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I haven't decided yet. She laughed softly, her eyes sparkling with amusement. I think you've already realized that I'm not exactly what I seem. I've realized that you know much more about this world than you should. Sophia tilted her head. Let's just say I've been surrounded by people like this before. Before Alexander could ask more, a group of businessmen approached, holding champagne glasses and offering friendly smiles. They were investors and magnates Alexander knew well. Bennett, one of them said, shaking Alexander's hand. You finally decided to show up at a social event. Alexander returned a firm handshake. I thought it would be interesting to celebrate the couple. The businessman's attention quickly shifted to Sophia, studying her with interest. And who is your lovely companion? Before Alexander could respond, Sophia stepped forward and extended her hand naturally. Sophia, a pleasure to meet you. She spoke with such natural confidence that none of the businessmen questioned her presence. Sophia, one of them repeated, studying her. Your face looks familiar. Sophia smiled, keeping the mystery alive. Perhaps we've met at an event before. The businessman nodded thoughtfully but didn't press further. Alexander watched her closely. Sophia was blending in far too easily. And what do you do, Sophia? Another businessman asked, intrigued. She picked up a champagne glass from a passing waiter, swirling the liquid before answering. I enjoy observing the financial market. The rise in technology investments has been quite interesting lately, especially the new startups focused on artificial intelligence. There was a brief silence. Alexander almost laughed at the surprised expressions on the businessmen's faces. None of them had expected such an articulate response. That's a rather specific topic, one of the men commented. Sophia smiled, taking a sip of her drink. I just follow trends. After all, everything comes down to who gets the inside information first, doesn't it? The men laughed, now more at ease. Sophia had captured their interest. Alexander, however, felt a growing frustration. Sophia wasn't just fitting in, she was taking over. Before he could intervene, a tall man with a distinguished appearance approached. Daniel Blackwell, one of the country's most influential investors, known for his sharp business instincts and his ability to size people up quickly. Sophia, right? Daniel looked at her with interest. You seem very comfortable here. She turned to him with a polite smile. Maybe because I am. Daniel laughed. I like that. And what's your relationship with Bennett? She shot Alexander a playful look before answering. Just an interesting partnership. Alexander felt his blood boil. Sophia was playing her own game, and you didn't like losing control. Indeed, Alexander interjected, taking the glass from her hand and handing it to a waiter. Now, if you'll excuse us, I need to steal my companion for a moment. He grabbed her wrist and led her to a more secluded area of the ballroom. What exactly are you doing? He asked, through clenched teeth. Sophia smiled. Just having fun. You're standing out too much. Wasn't that the plan? To make your ex-fiancé halos? Alexander narrowed his eyes. You play very well, Sophia. She tilted her head. And you don't like it when you can't control the game, do you? Alexander let out a short laugh. You're not just a simple beggar. Sophia crossed her arms, and it took a while to figure that out. Before he could respond, Victoria appeared beside them. I hope you're enjoying the party, she said politely, though her eyes assessed Sophia cautiously. Very much, Sophia answered before Alexander could speak. Victoria forced a calculated smile. You know, Sophia, I feel like we've met before. Maybe, Sophia replied with a shrug. The high society world can be small, after all. Alexander noticed the way Victoria pressed her lips together. And where do you know Alexander from? Victoria insisted. Sophia smiled. I think it's more fun if that stays a mystery. Victoria let out a soft laugh, though there was something sharp in her gaze. Of course, mystery always adds an interesting touch to stories. She turned to Alexander. Can we talk for a moment? Alexander nodded, but before stepping away, he cast one last look at Sophia. She simply smiled, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. Alexander followed Victoria to a private balcony. The night was cold, and the city lights sparkled in the distance. But the look on the woman in front of him burned like fire. Who is she? Alexander, Victoria asked bluntly, crossing her arms over her immaculate dress. He kept his expression neutral. Sophia, my companion. She let out a dry laugh. Don't treat me like a fool. I know the kind of woman you bring to events like this, and she doesn't fit the mold. Alexander felt a surge of irritation. What exactly do you want to know, Victoria? She stared at him intensely. Where did she come from? He hesitated for a second, and that was enough for Victoria to catch on. My God, she whispered, as if she had pieced the puzzle together. You found this woman on the street, didn't you? Alexander didn't confirm it, but his silence said it all. This is unbelievable, Victoria said with a disbelieving laugh. You brought a beggar to provoke me. I brought a confident, intelligent woman who fits in here perfectly. He countered firmly. A woman who knows too much for someone who was supposedly living on the street, Victoria retorted, narrowing her eyes. She doesn't belong in this world. Or does she? Alexander didn't like her tone. Don't try to play games with me, Victoria. You don't have that right anymore. She raised an eyebrow. Maybe I don't. But I have the right to know who I'm dealing with. Victoria straightened her posture, as if she had already made a decision. If I were you, Alexander, I'd be careful. That woman didn't show up in your life by chance. Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked back to the ballroom, leaving Alexander alone with his doubts. Meanwhile, Sophia felt the stares as she moved through the guests. It was inevitable since her arrival. Everyone had been trying to figure out who she was, but she moved with ease, as if she had always belonged there. Then Victoria appeared in front of her. You dance well. Victoria sighed and Sophia smiled. Thank you. So do you. Victoria tilted her head, studying her. And you speak well. You know how to carry yourself in an event like this. I appreciate the compliment, Sophia said calmly. It wasn't a compliment. It was an observation. Sophia noticed the tension in Victoria's eyes. You think you know me? Victoria laughed softly. I don't think. I know. Sophia kept her posture steady. Then tell me, Victoria, who do you think I am? Victoria observed her for a long moment before smiling. That's what I'm still trying to figure out. She picked up a glass of champagne from a waiter's tray. But don't worry, Sophia, I always find out. She took a sip and disappeared into the crowd. Sophia stood still, taking a deep breath. Victoria was starting to suspect something, and that was a problem. In the car, Alexander drove in silence. Sophia watched the bright city streets, but she could tell he was unsettled. "You want to ask me something?" she said. "I do." He didn't take his eyes off the road. "But I don't know if you'll answer." She smiled. "Depends on the question." Alexander turned the wheel, making a sharp turn. "Who are you, Sophia?" She crossed her legs, relaxed. "The woman you chose to make an impression on your ex-fiancé? No." His jaw tightened. "You know too much. You act like someone who has lived in this world before." She stayed quiet. Alexander pulled up in front of his hotel and turned to face her. "I had you investigated." She didn't look surprised. "And what did you find?" He studied her. "Nothing. You don't exist, Sophia. No records, no recent information. It's as if you erased your own life." She gave a small smile. "Maybe some things need to be erased." Alexander felt a mix of frustration and fascination. "I don't like mysteries. Then maybe I'm not the right person for you." She opened the car door and stepped out, walking into the hotel without looking back. Alexander sat still for a moment, his fingers gripping the steering wheel. She was hiding something, and he was going to find out. Sophia locked the door and leaned against it. Her heart was racing. Victoria was suspicious. Alexander was suspicious. She looked at herself in the mirror, the luxurious dress, the flawless makeup. For a moment, she looked like someone else. Or maybe she was becoming who she had always been. She pulled out the disposable phone hidden in her bag and typed a short message. He started investigating. The reply came seconds later. "Then it's time for you to decide your next move." Sophia deleted the message and let out a quiet sigh. She knew she couldn't keep this secret for long, and soon Alexander would find out the truth. Alexander was not a patient man. He liked direct answers, absolute control over everything around him. But Sophia, she was a mystery that defied his logic, and that bothered him more than he wanted to admit. That morning, as he sipped his coffee in his office, his mind was still stuck on the night before. Sophia knew things she shouldn't know. She acted like she belonged in high society, yet she had no records, didn't exist in any system. It was as if she had erased her own history. He picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in a while. "I need you to look into someone for me," he said bluntly as soon as the call was answered. On the other end, a man chuckled. "It's been a while." "Bene. Who's the target?" "Sophia." Alexander paused for a moment. "No last name. That makes things more interesting." "I want to know everything. Where she came from, who she really is, and why she seems to be hiding something." "Give me 48 hours. Alexander hung up and leaned back in his chair. If Sophia was playing a game with him, he would soon see her cards. Hours later, after leaving the office, he decided to find her. He knew she was still staying at the hotel he had booked for her. When he arrived, he went straight to her floor and knocked on the door without warning. "Let's play a little game." With those who only read the comments, type chocolate in the comments. Only those who made it this far will understand. Now let's continue with the story. It took a few seconds, but Sophia finally opened the door. She was dressed simply, without the flawless makeup from the night before, yet her posture remained unwavering. "Were you expecting someone?" Alexander asked, crossing his arms. She didn't seem surprised by his visit. "Not really, but you don't seem like the type who announces his arrival, do you?" He studied her for a moment. "Can we talk?" She stepped aside, letting him in. Alexander walked into the room, scanning the neatly arranged space. There was no sign that Sophia had been living on the streets. "Have you always been this straightforward?" he asked. She smirked. "You don't like small talk, so why should I use it?" Alexander sat on the couch across from her. "I want to know the truth, Sophia." She raised an eyebrow. "The truth about what?" "About you. Who are you really?" She leaned forward slightly. "Why does that bother you so much?" His fists tightened. "Because you came out of nowhere, accepted my offer without hesitation, and act like you already belong in this world, but there are no records of you anywhere." She was silent for a moment. And what if I don't want to tell you? Alexander let out a humorless laugh. So, I'll find out on my own. She looked at him for a long moment before sighing. Fine. Alexander, I'll tell you a little. He adjusted himself on the sofa, waiting. I grew up in a world very similar to yours. Luxury, parties, powerful connections. But that world can be cruel, especially when you become an obstacle to the wrong people. Alexander narrowed his eyes. Obstacle? My family was influential. My father ran businesses that involved a lot of money, but one betrayal made everything fall apart overnight. I lost everything. He frowned. Who betrayed you? Sophia looked away. Someone I trusted. Alexander sensed there was more to the story than she was revealing. Why did you erase your life? She gave a sad smile. Because sometimes it's safer to disappear. The silence between them grew heavy. Alexander knew she wasn't telling him everything, but this was the first piece of the puzzle. And now? What do you plan to do? Alexander asked. Sophia crossed her legs. I'm still deciding. Alexander stood up. You can keep deceiving me, Sophia, but I will find out the truth. She watched him leave the room without saying another word. The next day, Alexander received a call from his investigator. I found something. Tell me. You were right. Sophia isn't who she pretends to be. Alexander gripped the phone tightly. Go on. Her real name is Sophia Monroe, daughter of Richard Monroe. Alexander's blood ran cold. He knew that named the construction tycoon. That's the one. But here's the interesting part. Bennett. Richard Monroe went bankrupt a few years ago after a scandal involving embezzlement. And guess who was involved in that scandal? Alexander felt his breath quicken. Who? Victoria Harrington. Exactly. Alexander felt silent for a moment. So Sophia didn't show up by chance. Seems like she didn't. He hung up and stared out the window of his office at the city below. Sophia had a direct connection to Victoria. That changed everything. Later that evening, he was in his office reviewing some documents, but he couldn't focus on a single word. Sophia's image kept flashing in his mind, the sparks of anger and vulnerability in her eyes, the way she never backed down. Before he realized it, he grabbed his car keys and drove to the hotel where she was staying. He needed to see her. He needed to hear the truth from her own mouth. The door opened after a few seconds, revealing Sophia with a tired expression. Her hair was slightly messy. Alexander ... Her voice carried surprise. We need to talk. She sighed and opened the door wider, letting him in. I didn't know you made late-night visits. Neither did I. He crossed his arms, staring at her. Can you stop testing me for a minute and tell me the truth? About what? He frowned. About why you accepted my proposal without hesitation. She looked away for a moment before finally speaking. Because Victoria Harrington destroyed my family. Those words made Alexander's stomach churn. He already knew, but he wanted confirmation. Victoria was responsible for my father's downfall, for the destruction of my life. He observed her closely. Tell me everything. Sophia walked to the window, hugging herself. My father, Richard Monroe, owned one of the largest construction companies in the country. He was an honorable, respected man until he trusted the Herring. Victoria came into the business as a strategic partner, someone he believed he could rely on. But in reality, she was manipulating him the whole time. Manipulating how? Creating fraudulent deals, embezzling money, putting his name on illegal transactions without his knowledge. When everything exploded, my father was accused of corruption. He lost everything. Our dignity. Her voice wavered. He passed away before he could defend himself. Alexander felt a pang in his chest as he heard that. My God. Sophia continued, her eyes fixed on the city outside. After that, everything fell apart. My mother got sick shortly after and couldn't hold on. I tried to fight, to prove his innocence. But Victoria had already closed all the doors on me. In no time, I had nothing left. Alexander stood and walked over to her. You survived on the streets. Yes. And that's how I learned never to trust anyone again. He reached out and lifted her chin, forcing her to look at him. You don't have to do this alone. She pulled her face away. I don't need a savior, Alexander. He took a deep breath, fighting the urge to insist. I know, but that doesn't mean you have to carry everything by yourself. Sophia let out a soft laugh, but there was no humor in it. You think you can protect me? I think I want to protect you. She blinked, surprised. And why? He let out a sigh. Because I don't know what I'm feeling anymore when I'm around you. There was a long silence. Sophia finally turned fully to face him. What does that mean? He ran a hand through his hair. It means you make me uneasy. I've never felt this way before. I can't explain it. She watched him for a long moment. And does that bother you? A lot. Then maybe it's best if we keep our distance. He shook his head. I can't do that. She looked away, clearly disturbed by the direction of the conversation. This doesn't change anything. I know. She clenched her fists. And what about Victoria? The mere mention of his ex-fiancée's name was enough to bring him back to reality. If everything you said is true, I don't know who she really is. Sophia nodded slowly. But, Ido, and I won't stop until I settle the score. Alexander remained silent. He knew he wouldn't be able to convince her to back down. Then I'll be by your side. She gave a small, bittersweet smile. Even knowing this could end very badly, he took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Even 10. Later that night, Alexander was awakened by the sound of his phone ringing. Alexander, we have a problem, said the investigator on the other end. What is it? Victoria already knows Sophia's around, and she's not happy about it. Alexander's heart raced. What is she going to do? We don't know yet, but she's digging for information on Sophia. He clenched his jaw. Keep me posted on any updates. When a hung of a weight settled on his chest, Victoria wouldn't leave Sophia alone. He needed to act before it was too late. The next morning, Alexander found Sophia on the hotel balcony. She was sitting on the ground, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at the horizon. He approached slowly and crouched down beside her. You know she's found out, right? I know. He sighed. She's not going to stop. Neither will I. Alexander watched her for a moment to weigh her. Hair was slightly disheveled. How tired her eyes looked. Something inside him tightened. Sophia ... She blinked a few times, as if trying to hold back tears, but one slipped down the corner of her eye. It was instinctive. Alexander pulled her into an embrace, holding her close against his chest. It's going to be okay, he murmured. She didn't resist. She simply closed her eyes and rested her face against him. Neither of them said anything. There was no need. In that moment, without having to admit it aloud, they knew they were in this together, and that Victoria had no idea what was coming. Alexander felt that something was about to happen. Since his conversation with Sophia the previous night, his mind hadn't found any rest. Knowing that Victoria was involved in ruining Sophia's family changed everything. He wanted revenge not just for Sophia, but for himself. After all, he had almost married a woman capable of destroying lives without hesitation. Now he needed to find out how far Victoria would go to protect her secrets. That morning, while reviewing some reports in his office, he received a call from his private investigator. Alexander? We have a problem. Go on. Victoria is up to something. My contacts say she's gathering information on Sophia. It looks like she's planning to expose something against her. Alexander gritted his teeth. What exactly did she find out? I don't know yet, but I do know she's already reached out to lawyers and journalists. If she's going that far, it means she has something big. He threw the pen on his desk and stood up, running a hand through his hair. Find out what it is before she makes a move. I'm on it, but I suggest you warn Sophia. He took a deep breath. I'm on my way to see her now. When he arrived at the hotel where Sophia was staying, Alexander knocked hard on the door. She opened quickly, surprised to see him so tense. What is it? He walked in without waiting for an invitation and shut the door behind him. Victoria is making a move against you.